Well, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I think the first Star Wars film is like my favorite. It's probably my favorite film, I think. And so when I heard that they were making a new one, I was so excited. And then when I found out that I was auditioning to play the voice of the baddie in the new one, I just couldn't contain myself. And then when I found out that I got it, I still couldn't believe it. I still, even after, I did a few voice sessions. We recorded it they recorded it in a studio over here that was notoriously quite a cheap studio, and I remember thinking, oh wow, they're recording here. Oh, okay, well anyway, and then I went in and there's George Lucas, and it was just so incredibly exciting. And then I went into the booth. And what usually happens when you record a voiceover is the producer and the director and everybody and the sound engineer, they all sit outside with the desk and they can hear everything through the speakers. But George came into the booth with me and sat behind me. And it was really unsettling, All I could think of was George Lucas is sitting behind me. George Lucas is sitting behind me, And so I had these lines. There were originally a few more lines.
It was the second henchman all over again, wasn't it?
I turned up in the whole henchman outfit, and so I said to George, as I called him, I said, how do you want me to do this? What direction can you give me? And he said, just make him evil. Just make him sound real evil. All right, okay. So I did, and I did my impressions for him. I tried to. I was shaking so much, I was shaking, and I thought I can't sit with George Lucas and not do my Star Wars impression. I mean, I didn't do them all, but I did my Chewbacca, and which I used to be quite a heavy smoker, and it was a lot better when I was a heavy smoker. But and I did my Darth Vader as well. I ordered an orange juice from the studio, and I asked them for a pint glass, so I knew that when I finished my orange juice, I'd have the empty glass, which is the impressionist's tool if you want to do Darth Vader. So I did that, and it was really exciting. They had to revoice this Ray Park guy because his voice was a little bit, I don't know, it was just like too soft, but I was thrilled because it was like maybe my favorite part of the Star Wars films is James Earl Jones's voice, and then when I did these ads, these like they called them tone poems. It was so pretentious. They did these tone poem ads. I mean, the technique's been copied quite a bit now, where as Darth Maul, it was like a 30-second TV spot, and I said, fear attracts the fearful, the strong, the weak, the innocent, the corrupt. Fear is my ally. And so I did these things with like this music and stuff.
Darth Maul, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. And so I did these things. I remember George Lucas saying to me, you're kind of like the new James Earl Jones. And I was like, am I? No. And then we were talking about Dave Prowse, and
he called him the Jedi.
The Jedi. Oh yes.
Definitely Jedi.
And he
Dave Prowse, Green Cross man. Remember him? This is proper observational comedy now. That was a proper one. But for those of you who don't know, he was a West Country man who played Darth Vader. Guy.
And but I remember George Lucas saying to me, Dave Prowse was only in the Darth Vader suit when he was standing and pointing. When he was running or fighting, it was like other guys. So he was basically just the standing Darth Vader. But then I was so excited, and it was one of those. Have you ever done a job where it's like veiled in like this ridiculous secrecy, and you're not allowed to tell anybody about it.
I could have stopped you. Have you ever done a job? Have you ever been in Star Wars, Rich? No, I haven't, Peter, no. Yeah, I wasn't even asked to do couples fucking retreat. I'm not going to get asked to do Star Wars, am I? So I remember they were so secretive about it. I didn't even know if I was definitely going to do the job, you know? And I'd heard a rumor that somebody else was doing this voice, and I was thinking, oh shit, I've told everybody now, you know? And then the trailer came online, and it was like sort of the first time anybody had really watched a trailer on the internet. And this was like in 99, I think, or 2000. Anyway, one of those. And when we all had like really old modems, you know, phone 56K modems, where it would just take... I mean, this trailer was probably about like 10 megabytes or something, and it took literally like 2.5 hours of pure uninterrupted phone use. Uninterrupted being the key, because if you had call waiting, then that was it. You had to start again. If anyone picked it up, you had to start again. Or, you know, just a bird people
landed on the...
don't remember this.
No,
audience are like
remember.
looking at us going, what are you talking about? And then they don't remember this world before.
And then, and also my friend Lewis MacLeod, who's another comedian, is a brilliant voice actor, and he was in the film as well, playing Sebulba, who's like he's like an alien in the racing.
They're really branching out, aren't they, with the Star Wars? An alien, isn't it? How did he come up with that? And
then we watched this thing after like waiting patiently for this thing. We watched it, and I just thought it looked like the most incredible film I'd ever seen. I just thought, this is like sci-fi meets Fellini, you know? Seeing those costumes looked incredible. And also the trailer was fantastic. I mean, I know the film was, well, we'll get to the film, but the trailer, even watching it again now, it makes me think, maybe I'll check it out again, because the trailer does make it look like a really amazing film. And then I remember the premiere was in New York, and I thought, wow, this is like a film premiere, you know? It's my first one, and they're going to fly me out, and I'm going to be put up in a hotel, and you know, people are going to take photos of me, and it's going to be really super exciting. And then I wasn't invited to the premiere. And I was like, oh, fucking hell. And then I got my agent to see, you know, if they could do anything. And I think at the time I was with Talkback, who were owned, probably still are, by Mel Smith and
yeah.
Griff Rhys-Jones. Actually, maybe they don't own it anymore. But
I think they might not own it now, but they did back then. But you had the henchman connection.
Yes, the henchman connection. And Mel Smith wrote a letter to Rob McCallum, who's the producer, and he'd worked with him before on my behalf. And I didn't even know Mel Smith, but he did this as a kindness to me. And then I got this invite, but it still was a bit weird. It was still like I had to fly out there myself. I had to pay for this ticket. It was like it was like a charity gala thing where the tickets were $1,000, and I was pretty skinned then, you know. But I thought, well, I've got to go to the Star Wars premiere, you know. So paid that, I paid for my sister and her boyfriend to come out, and then, but it, you know, it was all worth it. It was all like, you know, it was on a Sunday, and we were walking through New York, and I just thought, wow, this is so exciting. There's posters for it everywhere, and everyone was talking about it, and then we get into the cinema, and Liam Neeson's there being all giant and gorgeous with everybody, and it was just super, super, super exciting. And then we sat down in the theater, and then the lights went down, and the Fox fanfare came on, and everybody just even if you weren't a geek, there's nothing more associated with that fanfare than Star Wars, So everyone was like, oh my God. And then Star Wars comes up on the screen. Everyone's like, oh, fucking yes, this is fucking amazing. Oh my God, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. And then we started reading the text. And the text is not a big part of the other film. So I was thinking, right, okay, fine, fine. We're watching this thing, something about a trade agreement. I think was the most exciting part of the text. And then the text goes, and they're right, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. Here's the stars, right? Starfield, okay, Starfield, right. Spaceship, fantastic. The wars, brilliant, okay. And then we started watching it for like 10 minutes, and like there's Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson in a spaceship, and it's just like really boring, We're just like, oh man, this is boring. Everybody's silent, They made a joke in it about 5 minutes in, like Ewan McGregor has to say, I've got a bad feeling about this, which George Lucas probably was thinking everybody's going to kill themselves when they say that, like, because we said it in the other films. And everyone's like, yeah, no, we've actually got a bad feeling about this film because it looks terrible, And then, but still, it's like 10 minutes in, and you're thinking, okay, well, let it go on. It sort of looks spectacular and stuff. And then it's like half an hour in. Also, Darth Maul hasn't made an appearance, so I'm kind of zoning out anyway, And then I'm just watching it. I'm thinking, what is it about this film? It's like, it's boring. There's like a chase sequence where they get chased by a giant fish, and then the climax of that chase is the fish is eaten by a huge fish, and then the little comedy button on that. Is Liam Neeson says, "There's always a bigger fish," So it was like a literal representation of that saying, and everybody's kind of looking at each other. It's like question marks above people's heads, And then. Oh, that's right, yeah. And also in the first half an hour of the film, it's like, because of course it's about this trade embargo, which kids love, and there's these aliens, again, there's more aliens, from some kind of trade federation, who are like sort of these sort of Chinese, Japanese, Asian stereotypes, who I noted at the end of the film were played by white English actors. And I'm thinking, all right, okay, well, I mean, Star Wars was always a little, like, I always thought the Jawas were kind of like a bit of a cipher for, I don't know, like how George Lucas sees Arabs, maybe. Do you know what I mean? I always thought... I kind of always sort of thought that was a bit dodgy. But anyway, but this was like really overt. And then we meet Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
And, what can I say about Jar Jar Binks that hasn't already been said? But I was just shocked at how first of all, how unfunny he was. I mean, we all know that. I mean, has a kid ever laughed at a single Jar Jar Binks antic? And but I just thought that's like such a in any other film, people would say that's like a really awful portrayal of like a stereotypical black man at the turn of the century. And so I'm watching that, and he's played by a black guy as well, Jar Jar Binks. I mean, poor guy. I mean, what the fuck is he doing now? That guy. Oh my God. He had all that plastic surgery for a start, And then there was like, there's this character who's a slave owner. Who's like this character called Watto. I don't know if you remember this. He's like this kind of big flat fat fly thing who's got a big nose, and he's sort of got this sort of Jewish Fagin accent, and at one point literally says "Oi," you know, and you're like, oh my god, it reminds me of like one of those. If you're watching like Channel 4 in the day and there's like an old black and white film on and someone's in like blackface, you know, and they just bought this film for £8 to show and nobody's checked it, and it's like the most racist film of the 20th century. You know, I would say, you know, so not only was that making us feel uncomfortable, it was boring, it was so it was just a huge toy advert,
yeah.
You know. And also, and the thing was as well, and I felt kind of shitty about it because it was one of the worst paying jobs I've ever done. I really got like paid hardly anything for this. I was so out of pocket going to the premiere, you know, and I did this. I did this little stint on Six Music, and I got to interview some people, and I got to interview Terence Stamp, and I got to ask him about his experience on it, and it was just hilarious because they said he'd just moved to Australia, and then he got a call from his agent saying, Terence, they want you in London. They want you to be in this new Star Wars film. Terence Stamp's like, what the fuck, Star Wars? I don't care, you know, whatever. And he said, well, his agent said, look, I really, really think you should do it. So Terence said, well, what's the part? And he said, it's the king of the universe. He said, all right, I'll do it. So he's like, okay. And then they told him as well that his scenes would be with Natalie Portman, in that bit where, I mean, it's a spectacular looking thing. The art direction on the film is pretty brilliant. You know, the bit where they're all on sort of flying pods, and it's like the Senate, and it's massive, and but it's all CG, so it all looks like games from 2004, and so he's like, oh well, I get to play the king of the universe, and I get to meet Natalie Portman, who what was that film where she played an assassin? Leon, yeah. He said, oh yeah, I quite fancied her when she was in Leon. So like, okay. So he's like, okay, right, I'll go and do this thing. So he gets to London.
Is Terence Stamp dead? Because I might not be able to put this out.
No.
I know. So we might have to kill him before we put this out. That's what I'm saying.
So anyway, he gets on the plane, he's knackered, and he gets to Pinewood or wherever it was, and he meets George Lucas, and George says, okay, great, so if you stand here, and Terrence's like, what, here? It's just like this green room, you know, it's like just all green screen. He said, okay, you stand there, and you see that little white cross? That's Natalie Portman. Oh, God. So he does like these 2 days of like looking at an X and fantasizing about a child, Natalie Portman. And then
I think maybe George Lucas had heard about this. I have to put a little X there.
And
I feel sorry for George Lucas. He's got you fucking doing impressions of the first Star Wars. You go in and you go, oh, do you want to hear my Darth Vader impression? No, I don't. Everyone fucking does that. Yes. Leave me alone.
So he gets on the phone to his agent, and his agent says to him, he says, look, I'm sick of this. This job's a load of shit. You know, I'm standing in a green room talking to a white cross, and his agent says, look, I know the money's not very good, but George gives you a special gift. A nice gift. That's what he's renowned for doing. So, you know, just, you know, stay it out. So he did the next day. And then a runner took him to his little three-way hutch thing and said, there's a present for you from George Lucas. So he goes in. And on his little desk there is like a package to Terence. He opens it up. And and it was... a stencil set of the Phantom Menace. It's like a child's stencil set wherein you could draw accurate logos of Darth Maul and a pod racer stencil set. That was his gift. So,
and the thing is, George Lucas probably gets a discount on those.
Yeah.